Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. It's been about 2 years since I put down this rubber floor. Do I regret spending a crazy amount of money on it? Let's dive in. So it has been about 2 years since I put down the rubber flooring, and it's one of those videos where I get regular comments about, do you regret doing this? Is there anything you wish to do differently? So I'm going to be going over a whole bunch of things in here that I think I should do differently, things I learned, things that if you're wanting to put down a rubber floor, that might help you. So let's take a look at those. The biggest question is, how hard is it to sweep? And in reality, it sweeps much like concrete. It actually doesn't take much more than it does. But the problem is, you can see it far more than concrete. On concrete, you would never see this dust over here because it's the same color as the concrete. The actual moving of the dust around is just about the same as it would be on a concrete floor. But because you can see it more, you find you're going to be sweeping more often. Now, it's rather simple to sweep up. It sweeps really easily and it mops even better. It just looks gorgeous once you run over it with a mop. But who's got time for that? The next one then is stains and marks on the floor. So this coloring here is spray paint splatter. This is a paint drop. These points are all PVA glue that have dripped on here from making panels, and then dust gets collected on it. The epoxy actually chips off really well. I had a nice big spill of epoxy here and I was able to peel that up without any problem. But the PVA glue and the hide glue, they stick down pretty well. So yes, the floor has gotten fairly stained over the last 2 years, but it's a shop floor. That's kind of something I would expect. In all reality, the concrete would get stained and marked up just as much as the glue would stick to the concrete, about the same as it would stick to the rubber, maybe even a little bit more. One of my big concerns when I was originally putting this down is I kind of skimped a little bit and went for a 3/8 thick slab as opposed to a 1/2 inch thick. Now, it's not quite as cheap as going all the way down to a 1/4 inch, but I was wondering, am I going to regret that? My fear was with a thinner one, I'd get more bubbles and pockets, or if I rolled something over it, they would pop up. And I kind of thought, I'm probably going to have some problems with that with the 3/8, especially with putting heavy things on here. That might be an issue. After 2 years, I haven't had any problems with the 3/8 at all. I literally drag my bench around on this floor, and I haven't had any problems with it bubbling up. It holds perfectly flat. There's no glue holding this down at all. It just sits there. And it works, which really surprised me. It kind of makes me wonder, could I have gone down to a 1/4 inch and saved a little bit more money? Maybe. Now, I still think that if I had a lot of big, heavy machinery that I was going to be rolling around on this regularly, I might go up to a 1/2 inch, but I don't know. I haven't seen anything where I would have to, because the 3/8 is really holding up well when I drag heavy things across it. The other option that I decided to go with is doing rolls that go the whole length of the shop. And that means that there's less seams, but that means that my seams are a little harder to get together. And I thought, that might be a problem. The other option is I could have gone with 2 foot by 2 foot puzzle pieces that lock together and hold each other so the seams are held tight. But the puzzle pieces cost a little bit more. So do I regret it? I thought by now the seams would stand out obviously, but right down the middle of this image, there's a seam. Can you find it? Let's see if I get a little closer. Can you find it now? Let's get right down to it. There's the seam. Can you see that tiny little gap there? It's not really even a gap, it's just barely noticeable. A couple times I thought, well, I wonder if the seams are a little more visible now than they used to be with things shifting around. And a couple times I've been like, where is the seam? It's around here somewhere. There's a couple places where it's a little more obvious over here because the pattern color's a little bit different. But this other seam over here is, that one's almost impossible to find. The seams are incredibly tight. And all they're doing is sitting next to each other. There's no glue, there's no tape, there's nothing holding them there other than they're sitting next to each other. And the seams are gorgeous. I mean, to be honest, that one is probably the one that surprised me the most because I expected that the seams would become very apparent very quickly. But in honesty, I am overjoyed with how tight they are. Now, there is one caveat to that. The ends of the rolls aren't perfectly square and perfectly seamed. They're really, really close, but they're not. And due to the way I laid it out, my rolls didn't cover all the way on every space, and I had to seam a couple ends together. Now, the rolls side by side, they are gorgeously tight, but getting the ends to match up perfectly, that was a little bit more tricky. And here's where you can see the seam here and here and here. This is the end of one roll coming into the other end. It's nice and tight here, but the gap comes out to a 1/16 inch or so here where I didn't quite get them matched up. And so that gap has filled up with sawdust. It has become fairly obvious, but it's still solid. I kind of expected the dust to work underneath and lift it up, and these are perfectly solid. There's no movement around them. I ended up caulking this and this and this because those are the bigger holes, and I thought, ooh, that made good, so I'd stop the dust from getting in there. But the caulk is actually far more obvious, and I wish that I just hadn't caulked them, actually. But, 6 of one, half dozen of another. If that's the only problem in this whole floor, I'm actually rather happy. So do I wish I had gone with puzzle pieces instead of the rolls? No. I mean, if I had a large space where I knew there was going to be a lot of end seams, I might then find it worth that. But in this case where a roll goes pretty much the full length of the shop, except for where I had to cut those end seams here, I really haven't had any problem with it. And I think I would go with rolls again, because then there are less seams to worry about. And the seams that are there are just gorgeous. So I don't think in my particular application in a smaller shop, it's worth it to spend the extra on the puzzle pieces. The biggest benefit though, the one that really stands out to me, is safety. And that's one I really didn't think about when I was buying it, because rubber floor safety, yeah, if I fall down, there's a little bit more cushion. But the surprising thing is if something falls off my bench, I don't catch it. It's not gonna hurt it. If I knock a plane off my bench, I'm not gonna hurt it. The biggest injury I've ever had in a hand tool shop is when my chisel fell off the bench and I went down to get it, but my hand went down a little bit faster than the chisel and it stuck into my hand. That hurt. The other thing I'd often do is I would slide my foot underneath it, trying to stop it so that the chisel didn't hit the concrete. Now, when the chisel falls off the bench, I get out of the way. I let it fall. I don't even have to worry about it being something I have to think about. It's just subconscious. I know it's not going to hurt the tool to hit the rubber floor. And that's just a huge peace of mind. I can get out of the way and don't have to care about it. Now, it should be that way no matter what, but I have a large investment in my tools, so my gut reaction is, oh, save the tool. But it should be, get out of the way and let it hit. And the floor actually makes that in my brain, that if something falls off the bench, I let it. And the whole time I've had this plane till, I've only had one plane fall off and hit the floor. And thankfully, it was since I put the rubber down. It fell from up here, this one, my most expensive plane fell and hit the floor. And I knew before I picked it up, it's perfectly fine, because the floor actually provides enough cushion that any of my tools fall and hit the floor, it's not gonna hurt them. I know it kills a lot of people to do this, but it's not a problem. I didn't even dull it because the rubber was there to protect it. On top of it also dampening the sound in here, it actually has made the room quieter. It's made the room a little warmer because there's an insulation layer between the concrete and me. It's made it quieter for walking around. It's made it far more grippy. Even with regular shoes as opposed to my clogs, I can grip the floor far better here, making it far easier to push. Even if there's a bit of a layer of sawdust on top, that still gives me a bit of grip that the concrete wouldn't even have given me. And to cut to the end, I mean, really, this has been such a game changer for my shop. Other than my bench, I think that rubber floors are probably the most important piece of this shop. It really is incredible how much it has changed my woodworking in the structure, in the quiet, in the enjoyment, in the fatigue of standing on it. It has really made it a comfortable thing. Is it worth the amount of money I spent on it? I mean, honestly, I spent about $800 on it total. And really, that's about the same price you're going to be spending on a really heavy-duty bench with vices. So, yeah, I think it's worth it as long as you actually have the money to spend on it. If you do, great. If you don't, then there's probably other places you could spend your money. But with all that being said, when the day comes I get to build my dream shop, rubber floors are going to be the first thing to go in the shop. Before any tools go in, before anything moves in, rubber floors are going down. Because it's just, it works so phenomenally, and all the heavy tools can roll around on top of it without any problem. I can slide things around on it. It really is the basis of the shop. I would think about putting down rubber floors just as much as I would think about putting up walls. It ends up being around the same price as a really decent carpet and padding. So in that case, it's flooring for your shop, and I really like it. I don't make any commission or affiliate or anything with it. I bought the flooring with my own money, and yes, it is well worth it. I will leave links to the ones that I bought down below. The website has a huge collection where you can pick a different color fleck and sizes and measurements and different types and manufacturers, and there are lots of options out there. For an average hand tool shop, I am going to recommend about 3/8. I could probably get away with the 1/4 inch, so if you're really tight on money, maybe. But if you're gonna have heavier tools and you're gonna have big beefy things you're moving around regularly, you might wanna bump up to the 1/2 inch. But I've really been happy with the 3/8. I was really expecting to be, I don't want this, I want something stronger. But it's held up phenomenally well, and I'm looking forward to using it for years and years to come. If I didn't answer your question, throw it down in the comments down below. I will answer all of those. There's a lot of other little ins and outs I could talk about, and really honestly, it's flooring. But it's something that's actually rather surprised me. I am in love with it far more than I thought I would be. So yeah, rubber flooring, who knew? So I hope you like it. And if you do put a comment down below, even if it's just comment down below, you are helping out the channel, as well as hitting the like, share, subscribing. Thank you. I mean, really, without you guys doing that, no one would find our channel, and we are completely sponsored by you, the viewers. Speaking of sponsors, all those people over on that side, those are the patrons on Patreon. Between them and the members here on the channel who've clicked the little join button down below, we wouldn't be here. We are sponsored by you. We don't take sponsorships from other companies, so I can say what I want to say about rubber flooring rather than what the rubber flooring company wants me to say about it. So if you like that, think about becoming a member here on the channel or becoming a patron. I have links to those down below, or click the little join button. It really is what keeps us going. You guys are Wood by Wright, so thank you for that. On that note, I think that'll do it for now. Until next time, have a wonderful day. The most important thing about choosing rubber floors, make sure you get a blue fleck. That way, it'll match your planes.